The air smelled of burnt butter and rosemary. On the other side of the door, voices overlapped like cutlery on porcelain, and with each burst of laughter, I could feel the vibration through the wood, reaching my fingertips. I was holding a pecan pie with both hands. The glass dish was warm, my palms sweating beneath the floral dish towel. Hanging from the door, a wreath read "All are welcome" in golden letters, shimmering whenever the porch light flickered. The doorbell had a bluish lens at its center, pulsing slowly like a breathing eye. Pressed it. The sound of the ding was as clean as the cold night. My face appeared round and shiny on the tiny camera screen, reflected in the polished metal of the doorknob. I heard restrained footsteps, the shuffling of socks on the waxed floor, and the door cracked open just enough for an eye to size me up, my mother's. She smiled the kind of smile that gives a warning, not affection. From the hallway my father appeared, napkin in hand, his tie crooked. He straightened the knot automatically while his other hand was already reaching for the door latch. "Hi, Mom." I raised the pie a little. "I made the pecan the way Uncle Max likes it. It's still warm." She looked at me, then at the rim of the pie plate, as if evaluating merchandise. When she spoke, her voice was low, that careful tone that cuts rather than protects. "Not tonight, honey." "What do you mean, not tonight?" The smell of turkey hit me with a flash of childhood. Melted butter, garlic, the oven door snapping open. In the background someone popped a bottle. A chorus. "Happy Thanksgiving." "It's a private dinner," my father said, phrase landing flat, flavorless. "Family only." The word family hung on the threshold, swaying like a decoration on the verge of breaking. I felt the pie slip just a bit. I rewrapped the towel around the glass. Outside, a neighbor walked by in a wool coat, small dog in tow. He pretended not to see me but slowed down to listen. The cold scratched my throat. On a sideboard behind them, I spotted a row of name cards, handwritten. Even from a distance, I recognized Aunt Lena's handwriting, the brown gold bows holding each card to the place setting. I looked for mine. A shadow, the reflection of my name on the glass, but it wasn't there. "I brought the pie for the table," I said, more to myself than them. My mother straightened the "All are welcome" sign, aligning it. The wreath wobbled, sending invisible glitter everywhere. "It's strategic tonight," she muttered, not meeting my eyes. "We have bored guests. Donors. It's a specific dynamic." My father cleared his throat, stamping the ending with his usual authority. "Strategic," I echoed, my breath making a brief cloud in the air. Inside, someone started a prayer, Aunt's voice rising above the normal volume. "Lord, thank you for this family gathered." My phone was buzzing in my coat pocket. The family and gratitude group flashed with a new picture. The set table, white cloth, arrangements of dry branches and low candles, the turkey a golden sun in the center. All smiling. My mother in pearls, my father in a blue suit, my aunt's hand on my cousin's shoulder, my cousins with their glasses raised. The caption, "Together as always." I tapped to enlarge. In the corner of the frame was the door wreath, and my own shadow outside, faceless. My father's hand was already nudging the door closed. "We'll call you later." I took a slow breath. I looked at the doorbell lens reflecting my skin like dark water. Right then I understood there were no right words. They had decided I was the wrong one. I stood up straight, shifted the pie in my arms, and took a step back. "I get it," I said. "Have a good dinner." The gap narrowed. The wood met the jamb with something final. The bolt spun shut like a safe. I stood a moment on the porch as the wind lifted a strand of my hair. Yellow light leaked under the door and drew a line on the cement, dividing the world into inside and outside. I stepped down a stair, then another. On the sidewalk, a dry leaf scuttled by in the wind. The neighbor's dog barked once, then fell silent. I unlocked my phone with my free hand. My other palm burned from the plate. I opened the doorbell app. The screen loaded, then froze. My face, the wreath, the crack in the door, my mother's hand pausing on the knob. Under the video, a timeline slid on its own, a blue dot dancing. Press play. I heard the ding again, so clean. Then, fabric brushing the mic and breathing close by. My mother's voice, clearer than in person, whispered to my father after the lock clicked. "She can't be in the official photos tonight." The file auto-saved, time and date stamped. My phone vibrated. Clip November 27, 1804. Front door. I tucked it into my pocket and only then felt the warm weight of the pie again. The steam rising from its cracks drew shards in the cold air. I straightened the towel, got a better grip, and started walking. The street felt rearranged, as if the houses had shifted places. In my pocket the clip pulsed. In my mind, a very quiet place began to light up. I spent the night awake, sitting at my kitchen table, the pie untouched on the counter and the sound of the fridge marking the seconds like a metronome. Each click of the compressor was a memory opening inside me. An old comment, a gesture that once seemed innocent and now sounded like a premonition. The doorbell video looped on my phone, my mother's face frozen in that sliver of light. "She can't be in the official photos tonight." The words echoed as a caption for everything that came before. My apartment is small, but extremely organized. 2 shelves of design books, a desk lamp that imitates natural light, and an entire wall covered in post-it notes with file names and dates. I'm a communicator. I work editing videos and campaigns for NGOs and small neighborhood businesses. I'm always transforming chaos into narrative. In the corner of the table, there's a hard drive labeled in silver marker. Family. On it, I keep years of photos, events, and records I produced myself. Baptisms, dinners, church parties. I was always the person behind the camera. That was my role, to record, not to exist within the image. I opened the folder. I saw the old photos. 2014 birthday. United family. I was with the camera on my lap, out of focus in the background. Christmas 2016. They cut half my face to fit the table decoration. 2018 service. Caption, "We are all one," but my name wasn't among the team credits. I realized the erasure was never casual. It was a silent choreography. I accepted dancing because they taught me to think that too much presence gets in the way. I remembered my childhood, my coily hair being combed forcefully to look more presentable, the white dress my mother said weighed me down. I remembered the first time I heard, "You have an exotic beauty. A shame it doesn't match the family." I must have been about 12. Back then, I still thought the problem was the mirror. Today, I understand it was the framing. I took a deep breath. I turned on the computer and opened the doorbell app in the browser. I downloaded the video file and renamed it official_27NOV-MP4. Then I created a new folder. Evidence. The cursor blinked on the screen, patient. I went to the closet and got my camera. It still had the memory card from the last church event. Inserted, it showed dozens of photos I had taken and never published. Faces of neighbors, children, people of different skin tones smiling in the same frame. The image, my parents said, didn't represent the community's standard. While the photos loaded, the family and gratitude group was still active. Between heart emojis and biblical phrases, my aunt posted, "A beautiful night. Everything perfect, as always." Right below, a cousin commented, "The energy of our family is unique, a blessing." I scrolled to the top and saw something I had forgotten. An old message from my mother months ago, asking me to be careful with the topics you post, honey. Avoid bringing up racial issues when posting about the council. People don't understand. I had only replied with an okay at the time. Now, the screenshot of that conversation seemed more important than 1,000 apologies. I opened the editing app and dragged the files to the timeline. The screen split. On one side, the image of the closing door. On the other, the family group celebrating gratitude. I didn't have a plan, just a need. The sound of my mother's voice echoed with the click of the lock. The lights flickered like flashes from an album that cut me out page by page. I went to the window. The city was asleep, and the smoke from the buildings seemed like the same steam rising from the pie on the counter. I took a cold slice with my hands. The taste was sweet and bitter, like every memory that ripens too late. I wiped my fingertips on a napkin and went back to the computer. In the corner of the screen, a notification from a YouTube channel I followed appeared. A black woman, smiling at the camera, saying, "If they made you feel invisible, start by recording your own story." I paused the video and stared at her face. Maybe it was a sign, I thought. Maybe what I had always done, save, catalog, prove, could finally serve me. I opened the browser and created a new document with the title, "The Story They Tried to Cut." I typed the first line. "It starts with a door that doesn't open." Then I closed my eyes for a moment and smiled. And if you've ever sat on the edge of your own photo, just to fit in someone else's frame, I understand you. Subscribe, there's room in my frame. The sound of the fan filled the silence. On the screen the cursor still blinked, but now I was sure it was the heartbeat of an idea. In my pocket, the phone vibrated again. A new message from the neighbor. A video from outside my house, showing my father greeting a couple of donors through the garage. Her improvised caption said, "Thought you might want to see this." Open the video. The sound was clear. My father was saying, with the same voice he used in Sunday prayers, "Today is private. Image is everything." Suddenly, I realized I was no longer just gathering memories. I was collecting ammunition. Sunday dawned calm, but inside me the air was heavy. I woke up early, even without wanting to, and listened to the sounds of the building. The plumbing, footsteps in the hallway, the distant hiss of a pressure cooker in another apartment. The video of my father was still open on my phone, paused on the frame where he said, "Image is everything." I paused at the moment his hand extended to the donor couple, a gesture full of false smiles, a choreography of appearance. The contrast swallowed me. The family that presented itself to the world as a model of charity, but locked its own daughter outside. While the coffee brewed, I opened the family group again. New messages. Aunt Lena writing, "Yesterday was perfect. The house looked like a dream." A cousin replied with a sequence of hearts and glass emojis. My mother sent a photo of the living room, the sliced turkey, the illuminated table. No trace of me. And then the sentence, "Thank you, Lord, for maintaining the harmony of our family." I felt the lump rise in my throat. Harmony. That was the word they used to justify silence, to disguise exclusion with the perfume of good manners. I grabbed the camera and decided to go out. The neighborhood was still asleep, and the tree leaves looked shiny after the previous night's rain. I walked to the bakery, bought bread just to have something to hold in my hands. On the way, I saw the same neighbors from the council, the same automatic greetings. "Hi, dear. I saw your name on the church list. Are you helping with the event again?" I smiled but didn't answer. Inside me, something was starting to move, a combination of anger and lucidity. When I got home, I sat at the table and turned on the laptop. I opened a new document. Exclusion list. Line by line, I started to write. 2010 council photo cropped. Face out of frame. 2014 aunt's birthday, replaced by flower vase in final cut. 2018 harvest service. Voice removed from editing. 2023 door closed. Family redefined. I looked at the words as one observes old marks in the mirror. It was an inventory of my absence. Around noon my phone vibrated. An automatic notification from the church calendar. Thanksgiving service. Retrospective video at 9 a.m. on Monday. The message included the name of the person responsible for editing. Anna Martins. I stared at the screen for a while. The same video I had produced weeks ago, with scenes of the community, speeches from volunteers, photos of families being helped, and my testimony cut by decision of the council. They were going to show this video in front of everyone, and say it was about gratitude. I opened the drive where I kept the raw files. There was my complete recording, the part that never aired. Me in front of the camera saying, "Being family isn't about blood ties, it's about who opens the door." In the final edit, that part was gone. They replaced it with a generic caption, "Unity strengthens us." I stared at the screen. The cursor blinked, asking for action. I took the flash drive where I usually save backups and, without thinking, dragged the original video, the doorbell audio, and the garage video into it. I named the file, Gratitude OI. The computer asked, Do you want to replace the existing file? And I clicked yes with a slight tremor in my finger. For a moment, I saw myself reflected in the dark screen. Hair tied back, tired face, eyes without makeup. I looked like another person, or maybe, for the first time, I looked like myself. In the afternoon, I sat by the window and watched the building's children playing with dry leaves in the courtyard. One of them, a 7-year-old black girl, threw the leaves up and laughed loudly, her hair flying free. The mother, a dark-skinned woman with a firm gaze, waved at me from the sidewalk. I waved back. For a moment, I felt a kind of belonging that my own home never gave me. Later, the message arrived. Reminder, video delivery by 8 a.m. tomorrow. Projection during the service. I read it, closed the laptop, and watched the sunset through the window. The lights of the buildings turned on one by one, and the sky took on that blue-gray tone that precedes night. I took a piece of paper and wrote by hand. Image is everything, they said, so I'm going to show them theirs. I folded the paper and left it on the keyboard like a promise. The noise of the city outside seemed distant, and inside me, only the precise sound of something falling into place remained. While the clock showed 7:24, the phone vibrated again. A new message in the family group. Good evening, loves. Everyone is invited to the service tomorrow. Dress code, light tones. I looked at my skin reflected on the screen. I smiled to myself. Don't worry, I muttered. I'll shine anyway. The sound of the alarm clock found me before the light. It was still dawn, and the sky outside had the same blue-gray tone I used to correct shadows in photos. I made coffee, sat in front of the computer, and for a few minutes, just looked at the open folder on the screen. Evidence. The file thumbnails blinked like small lighthouses. Each one held a piece of what I had always tried to ignore. I opened the doorbell video. The frozen frame showed the shine of the wreath, the reflection of my face, and the millimeter-thin crack of the door, revealing my mother's eye. Played it. The audio of the phrase, "She can't be in the official photos today," sounded colder in the early morning. The distant sound of laughter and plates in the background seemed to mock me. I played the video twice, just to be sure the app had recorded everything. Then, I exported a copy with a timestamp and named it Door_Proof Audio MP4. Then, I opened the email the church coordinator had sent me asking for the final version of the retrospective video. Attached was the original script I had written myself, but with notes in red. Cut Anna's speech, too personal tone. Avoid very dark skin in the stage lighting. The coldness of those observations made me clench my fist on the mouse. I took a deep breath and took screenshots one by one. When I finished, the computer clock showed 4:22. I took the external hard drive and connected it. Inside the church folder, I found the raw videos from the previous service. Scenes no one else remembered. One of them showed my full testimony. At the end, I said, "Being family is opening the door for those who arrive, even when the world closes the windows." In the displayed version, they cut that part and put music. I dragged the original file to the new folder, along with the screenshots and the doorbell audio. I opened the editing program and assembled a simple timeline. Scenes of the smiling church, as they wanted. A hard cut to the audio. She can't be in the official photos today. Screenshots of the cutting instructions and the family and gratitude group. Final image. My unedited recording, me talking about opening doors. Without transitions, without effects. Just the raw truth. While adjusting the sound, I noticed how much my hands were shaking. But it was a different kind of shaking than that of someone who is afraid. It was the body understanding that the time has come. Before saving, something made me open the doorbell app one more time. There was the automatic recording of the dinner night. Every time someone opened the door, the camera recorded a few seconds. In one of the clips after I left, you could hear my father saying, "Good thing she didn't insist. It would have ruined the table's aesthetics." I saved that one too. The file was named Table Aesthetics MP3. On the screen, the evidence folder now had 9 items. It was like a parallel album of my story, what was never published but always existed. I took an old notebook and wrote down the order of the files, as one organizes chapters of a book. At the top of the page, I wrote in firm letters, Thanksgiving. Dawn was already breaking when I decided to take a shower. The hot water running down my back brought back old memories. Me as a child helping my mother prepare Thanksgiving dinner. Hearing her say, "Don't stain the apron, the guests will arrive." Always guests, always appearance. I remember wanting to sit at the table and hearing, "Guests first, then you." I grew up thinking that love was that, waiting your turn. I finished my shower and put on a black blouse, plain, without prints. The reflection in the mirror showed a woman who no longer needed someone else's light to see herself. I dried my hair with my hands and sat back at the computer. I sent the email to the coordinator with the title, Video and MP4. No explanation, no comments. Just a 318 megabyte attachment. Then, I copied the file to a silver flash drive and left it on the table. I made a second copy, identical, and named it with the same title. I kept this second version in a brown envelope, along with a handwritten note. Who is family when the door closes? While the computer was shutting down, the phone vibrated. A new message from the church coordinator. Thanks, Anna. The pastor wants to open the service with the video tomorrow. Can you be there to check the screen? I looked at the clock. It was 6:04 a.m. The sky was finally clear. The light passed through the curtain and drew a line on the wall, just like the one I saw on the sidewalk the night before. The same line that separated inside and outside. This time, I knew which side I wanted to be on. I sealed the envelope with tape, put the flash drive in my pocket, and left the pie, still untouched, on the counter. The sweet smell of nuts and caramel spread slowly, mixed with the steam from the coffee I had forgotten to drink. Before leaving, I touched the family folder's hard drive with my fingertips, as one who closes a cycle. I took a deep breath and murmured, alone in the kitchen, "Image is everything, Dad." Then let's see what the image has to say. The click of the lock echoed through the house. And for the first time I closed the door knowing it belonged to me. The sun that morning seemed to mock me. It came in through the cracks in the blinds, gilding everything that still hurt. The pie on the counter was starting to harden at the edges, the sugar forming a shiny crust that smelled of memory. I sat at the table with the laptop open and my eyes watery with fatigue. I had slept for an hour, maybe two. But it wasn't sleep I was missing, it was forgetting. I opened the doorbell video again, then the garage audio. The voices mixed like layers of a sad song. My mother whispering that image is everything. My father explaining to the donors that family is who represents well. Pause. The cursor blinked as if it were also asking me. And now? I took the notebook and reread what I had written in the early morning. The plan still seemed dangerous but clean. I didn't want dirty revenge. I wanted light. Not the stage light, nor the flash of photos, but the one that passes through when the lie breaks. Around 9, the phone vibrated. New messages in the family group. Girls, bring white flowers for the altar. Dress code, neutral tones. Avoid black, it looks heavy in photos. The words danced on the screen like polite knives. I closed my eyes for a moment and imagined them all lined up in front of the mirror, adjusting the pearl necklace, practicing that smile that doesn't need a soul to look happy. I remembered when I was a teenager and tried to be part of this ritual. The nude lipstick, the straightened hair, the discreet pose in photos. With each attempt the same phrase. You're pretty, you just need to fit in more. I thought fitting in was a synonym for loving. Today I understand it was the most polished name for erasing. I looked around the apartment. On the table, the evidence folder open. On the wall, the notes. On the chair, my jacket. Everything organized, as if my life had become evidence. For the first time, this comforted me. I took the flash drive and put it in my bag along with the brown envelope. Then, I opened the editing program and opened the video file again. The title on the screen, Video MP4. It was the same name as the official version, but the content was different. In the first few seconds, the gentle soundtrack, the scenes of the community, the smiling children. Then the hard cut to the doorbell audio. The phrase, private dinner, family only, echoing through the hall. Next, the screenshots, the messages, the muffled laughter, the sound of cutlery. And finally, my voice, calm in the testimony they cut. Being family is opening the door for those who arrive, even when the world closes the windows. I watched until the end. No effects, no filters. Just what was necessary. When the video ended, the silence in the room seemed louder than any soundtrack. The phone vibrated again, but this time it wasn't the family group. It was an automatic notification from the church. Reminder, sound check at 6 p.m. Video screening at the opening. I took a deep breath. This was it. I opened Instagram out of impulse. I scrolled to the church's profile. The dinner photos were already published. My mother and father smiling in the center, the caption. Family is gratitude. #thankful hearts. And below, dozens of comments. An example for the community. Beautiful. What a blessing. My chest tightened. Not with anger but with irony. They were really good at staging. But the difference is that, this time I was the one controlling the edit. I left the laptop on standby and went to the hallway mirror. I looked at myself as if it were a portrait I was still learning to accept. The skin reflected the golden light of late morning, the firm eyes, the loose hair around my face. I thought of all the times someone asked me to reduce the contrast. Smiled. I went back to the table and wrote in the notebook. Tomorrow, when the video starts, they will see me. Not because I asked, but because I proved I was there. I closed the notebook forcefully. The sound was dry, decided. I picked up my phone and opened the notepad, typing something that wasn't exactly an outburst. It was a call. If they ever erased you from your own family's photos, leave your name here. Every story told is a light turned on in their darkness. I posted it on my profile without hashtags, without explanations. In less than an hour, messages started coming in. Women I didn't know telling their versions. The cousin who was cut from the wedding photo, the sister who never went up to the altar, the daughter who always stays behind in Christmas photos. I read each one. And, for the first time, I felt that my pain had a language. I closed the app and left my phone aside. The sound of the city rose through the windows. Horns, footsteps, voices. I opened the curtains and let the light in completely. The brightness hit the pie's glass, reflecting a beam that crossed the kitchen and reached me. That light was different. It didn't come from the sky, it came from choice. And if they ever folded you to fit in someone else's frame, then like, comment, scream if you have to. Because every time we show ourselves whole, the world has to adjust the frame. I sat down again, took a deep breath, and mentally rehearsed the next steps. Tomorrow the church, the screen, the faces. And the truth, naked, audible, inescapable. At 5 p.m. when I left the house, the sun was already setting behind the buildings. I locked the door and left the pie there, as a witness. The sweet proof that not everything that is rejected ceases to be precious. The afternoon air was heavy, as if the whole world was breathing slowly. The path to the church seemed longer than ever. Every corner brought back a memory. The park where we had a Christmas picnic years ago. The ice cream shop where my sister told me that too much sun darkened the skin and ruined photos. I remembered every detail, like someone reliving an old script before the final scene. I carried my bag across my chest, the flash drive in the inner pocket of my jacket. The fabric scraped against my skin, reminding me that this small object could rewrite years of silence. Upon arriving at the church, I saw the cars lined up in front, the women in light dresses and shiny heels, men in suits and rehearsed smiles, children with white bows in their hair. Everything impeccable, a showcase of what my mother called family decorum. The luminous sign flashed. Thanksgiving service, family and unity. I crossed the courtyard with measured steps. The sound of the choir rehearsing escaped through the ajar doors. The voices sounded sweet, almost angelic, and for a second I wondered if anyone there could hear what was rotten behind that harmony. The technical coordinator, a young man in his 20s, saw me and waved. "Anna, glad you came. I've already set up the projector. The video is here, right?" I smiled, controlling the tremor in my lips. "Yes, it's here with me." He took the flash drive without realizing the importance of the gesture. He just went through the motions like someone pressing a button without knowing what it triggers. It'll be the first video of the night. The pastor wants to start with emotion. Emotion. The word pierced me with irony. I entered the hall. The white walls reflected the yellow lights of the ceiling, creating an almost celestial feeling. The rows of chairs were almost all occupied. My parents were in the front row, next to the council's board. My mother in a beige lace dress, her hair in a firm bun. My father, navy blue suit and white handkerchief in his pocket. Their smiles were so studied that they seemed part of a portrait. I sat in the back in a discreet corner, but from where I could see everything. A children's choir went up on stage and sang a song about love and forgiveness. People clapped in rhythm, delighted. I just watched. There was no anger, just a tense calm, that of someone who knows what's coming. The pastor went up to the pulpit and began the sermon. He talked about families united by faith, about respecting hierarchies, and not letting ego divide the home. Every word seemed addressed to me, even if disguised as a sermon. My parents nodded satisfied. When the choir finished, the lights dimmed partially. The coordinator signaled to the screen. Now, our retrospective of the year, a moment of gratitude for our community. The first frame appeared. Images of the decorated church, children playing, smiling elderly people. The gentle soundtrack filled the hall. The audience melted into smiles, and I realized how comfortable a lie could be. But then came the hard cut. The screen went dark. The sound of the doorbell click sounded loud and crystal clear. She can't be in the official photos today. The whole hall fell silent. The next image. My mother's face, captured by the door camera, illuminated by the hall's light. Clean audio, no noise. Someone coughed in the audience, a dry sound that echoed in the quiet. Then, the messages from the family and gratitude group started appearing on the screen, one by one, sliding like captions. Doesn't match the photo standard. Avoid black, it looks heavy. Image is everything. My heart was beating firmly, but my face was serene. Then, the final sequence. Me in front of the camera, the same recording they cut from the original edit. My voice sounded firm, without a tremor. Being family is opening the door for those who arrive, even when the world closes the windows. Image froze. The music ceased. The screen went black. No one moved. The pastor blinked, confused, trying to understand what had just happened. The coordinator looked from side to side, in silent panic. My parents remained motionless, petrified, their eyes wide. My mother put her hand to her chest. My father adjusted the handkerchief in his pocket with nervous gestures. Then, a murmur began among the faithful. Low voices, questions, glances. Was that real? Did she edit it herself? Who said that? The pastor cleared his throat and tried to take the microphone back. Brothers, it seems there has been a technical mistake. But the audience was already in motion. People getting up, taking photos, recording videos. The hall was buzzing with murmurs. And I, sitting in the back, watched everything with a calm that seemed impossible. The truth was exposed, naked, unedited. I took out my phone and recorded the end of the video being shown on the screen, my father's desperate look trying to stay on his feet. And in the midst of the confusion, my mother found me with her eyes. It was a second, maybe two. Enough for her to understand that I had been the author of that. She opened her mouth but said nothing. And I, for the first time, didn't need to explain myself. I stood there, breathing deeply while chaos set in. The sound of voices, of chairs dragging, of the pastor asking for calm. Everything sounded distant, muffled. And inside me, something began to reorganize, as if finally the framing was right. Because that night, I wasn't the one who had been erased. It was them who had been revealed. The church hall became a field of whispers. The lights were still flickering, trying to regain control of the atmosphere, but the truth had already pierced the air like a lightning bolt, impossible to retract. The pastor, visibly flustered, stammered broken prayers, trying to impose order with a "brothers," Let's maintain respect, please. But respect is something that dies quickly when the embarrassment is collective. People looked at my parents, then at the screen, then back at them. The video had ended minutes ago, but the silence was so dense you could hear the sound of heels on the wooden floor. I remained seated, motionless, with my hands clasped in my lap. The kind of serenity that is only born when there is nothing left to lose. My mother was the first to get up. Her nude-painted nails trembled slightly as she adjusted her dress. The social smile, the one she used as a shield, tried to reassemble itself on her face, but her eyes betrayed her. My uncles looked at each other, waiting for a signal from the patriarch, and it came. My father stood up, slowly, with the expression of someone who needed to save their own reputation in front of the public. "My daughter," he began, his voice still modulated for the microphone, which the pastor instinctively extended. "It seems there has been a misunderstanding. Editing things. The devil is cunning. He uses audio-visuals to distort words." Some people nodded, others frowned. I perceived the reactions as if I were watching from the outside, in a slow-motion movie. I stood up. The chair made a dry sound against the floor. Everyone turned out. "No problem, Dad. If it's a distortion, I can bring the raw audio now. It's on my hard drive." A murmur ran through the rows. The technical coordinator, pale, held the flash drive in his hands. My father hesitated. The pastor cleared his throat, looking for a way out. "Brothers, let's breathe and remember that forgiveness is the way." "Forgiveness comes after the truth," I interrupted without raising my voice. "And the truth is that I've spent my whole life opening doors that you closed for me. Only now it was the image that opened it." The sentence hung in the air like a verdict. My mother took a step closer, perhaps to ask for calm, perhaps to preserve the theater. But someone from the audience murmured loud enough for everyone to hear. "She didn't lie." I heard the same phrase at the dinner. The confusion gained volume. People were whispering, others were recording with their phones. The pastor tried to end the service abruptly, asking for a round of applause for the unity of the community. But the applause came scattered, hesitant, more like the sound of a building slowly collapsing. My parents withdrew through the side, avoiding gazes. I stood still until the last moment, watching people leave. Some gave me expressions of disguised support, others of disapproval. An elderly black woman, sitting in the back rows, looked at me for a few seconds and nodded slightly, that kind of silent gesture that says, "I know." When the hall was almost empty, the technical coordinator approached. "Sorry, Anna. I didn't know what was in the video. I just played it on the screen." "You did exactly what you had to do," I replied. "The truth needs someone to press play." He stood there, not knowing whether to smile. I just took the flash drive from his hand, turned off the pulpit microphone, and left through the side door. Outside, the night wind was cold but liberating. The parking lot lights flickered, reflecting on the hoods of the cars. For a moment, I leaned my back against the wall and closed my eyes. My heart was still racing, but it was a different rhythm, the pace of someone who is finally in their own time. Heard footsteps. It was my Aunt Lena coming towards me. Her heel clicked dryly against the ground. "Anna, your mother is devastated. You exposed everyone. You didn't have to go this far. I just showed what has always existed," I replied, facing her. "You were the ones who never wanted to see that. But it was a night of faith, of unity." And it was. The faith in the image you created finally died. That is also liberation. She shook her head and walked away, muttering something about ingratitude. I stood there a little longer, looking at the cloudy, starless sky. The clouds covered everything, but there was a distant, insistent glow, perhaps the moon trying to break through the disguise. I took out my phone and opened the video I recorded of the screen. I posted it on my stories without a caption, just a door emoji and another of a rising sun. Within minutes, reactions started coming in. Hearts, messages, applause. People who saw, who understood. As I walked to the car, I felt the weight of the years diminishing with each step. With each memory of exclusion, a piece of fear broke away. In the passenger seat, the brown envelope was still intact. I rested my hand on it and whispered, "It's not over yet." Because, despite the revelation, I knew, what comes after the silence is not the end. It's the echo. And the echo, when it's true, makes the whole world listen. The news spread before I even got home. My stories had been shared dozens of times, and the video of the service was already circulating in neighborhood groups, church forums, and local profiles. Someone had recorded the entire screen, with my father trying to justify himself, my mother with her head down, and the phrase echoing clearly, "She can't be in the official photos today." What started as a whisper was turning into a whirlwind. As I climbed the stairs of the building, my phone vibrated non-stop. Messages from strangers, from Black women, from former churchgoers, from people saying, "Thank you for showing what we live through every day." I read everything with trembling hands. Each word seemed to give me back a piece of myself I didn't even remember losing. Upon entering the apartment, the smell of the cold pie still dominated the air. It was there intact, just like me before yesterday, made with care but left aside. I sat in front of it and started to cry. Not from sadness. It was a dense, old cry, the kind that comes from deep within the bones, when the body understands that it has finally finished carrying the weight. My computer was still on. On the screen, the evidence folder was open like an exposed wound. I clicked on a new tab and started writing a text to publish, not as an outburst, but as a record. For many years, I tried to be what they called appropriate. I lightened the tone of my photos, chose neutral clothes, avoided the word black in captions. All so as not to be the cause of embarrassment at family parties. Yesterday, when I closed the church door, I realized I wasn't the problem. The problem was the frame. I reread the text several times before posting. No anger, just truth. And, at the end, a simple sentence. If they ever made you believe your color is a shadow, share this light. I published it and left my phone on the table. While the computer screen went dark, the city began to wake up to what had happened. The local news channel published, "Video of service goes viral after accusation of racial exclusion in Christian community." Within minutes, there were hundreds of comments, debates, hashtags. People taking sides, others trying to downplay, and some recognizing their own stories in the subtext. I opened the family group. Absolute silence. No messages since the night before. Only the typing. Status appearing and disappearing several times. I laughed, alone, a light laugh like someone who already knows they no longer need an explanation. But among the notifications, there was a different message. "Can we talk? Mom." I stared at the screen for long seconds before replying. There was no hatred, just a crystalline clarity, the kind that comes after the storm. I wrote, "We can." But this time without closed doors. I sent it and left my phone aside. I went to the balcony. The cold wind of the previous night was now a warm breeze, and the streetlights mixed with the rising sun. For the first time in a long time I felt part of the landscape. Not an exposure error, but a color the day needs to exist. I took a deep breath and watched the messages continue to arrive. People telling that they were erased from photos, disguised in genealogies, silenced in churches. Each account was an echo. I opened the church's email. An automatic notification informed, "Extraordinary Council Meeting, subject, Conduct and Institutional Image." Smiled. They were worried about the image. Always with the image. But this time the image belonged to me. I recorded a short video, simple, just with my phone propped on the window. Loose hair, natural light, clean face. If you were also left outside a door, know that this doesn't define your place. Sometimes, it's outside that we find the most beautiful view. I posted it on my profile. And, without realizing it, I launched something that began to take on a life of its own. The video was shared thousands of times. Black women of different ages started tagging each other, posting their stories with the same phrase. Doors that don't open also teach who deserves to enter. The movement grew, and the hashtag #MyColorIs also family appeared in the trends. I hadn't planned any of this. I just told the truth. But the truth, when told calmly, has the force of a wave. I took a deep breath and looked at the sky. There were still clouds, but there was also light. And if you're reading this, and you've ever felt the weight of being forgotten in your own story, share. Because every story told aloud is a new key turning in a door that will never close again. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Newspapers wanted interviews, local radio stations asked for statements, and even a reporter from a national channel had left a message on my voicemail. I watched everything from a distance, unhurried, like someone watching their own life with a remote control in hand. I wasn't in a hurry because, for the first time, time was on my side. The video's repercussion had taken on unexpected proportions. The service, once a symbol of the model family, now became a subject of debate on institutional racism. In the neighborhood's WhatsApp groups, messages were divided between defense and repudiation. Some said I had ruined the church's reputation. Others stated that she just showed what everyone pretended not to see. I spent the morning responding to only one type of message, those from women. Mothers, daughters, colleagues, neighbors. All with different stories but a similar pain. They did it to me too. It's the same in my house. Thank you for showing what we feel and don't have the courage to say. Each notification was a drumbeat. I read and felt something vibrate in my chest. Fear was beginning to turn into rhythm. In the middle of the afternoon, I decided to go for a walk. The streets seemed different. Not because they had changed, but because I now saw them with new eyes. The corner market, where I used to avoid going during peak hours to avoid jokes about my hair, now greeted me with curious smiles and even a, "I saw you on the internet. Congratulations on your courage." I just said thank you. The recognition was strange but not uncomfortable. It was delayed justice, the kind that arrives without asking for permission. I bought flowers. Yellow roses, not white. And as I walked home, I realized how symbolic that simple gesture was. For years, my family insisted that white was the color of purity, of harmony. I preferred yellow. It's the color of the sun, of resistance, of what blossoms even after being cut. When I arrived, I found new messages, this time from the pastor. The tone was formal, almost cold. "Dear Anna, we deeply regret what happened. The church recognizes that the video screening caused embarrassment. The council is meeting to clarify the facts. We hope to count on your forgiveness and Christian discretion." I smiled without anger. Christian discretion. 2 words that summed up everything they had expected of me my whole life. That I be restrained, docile, silent. I closed the email without replying. While arranging the flowers in a vase, I heard knocks on the door. I opened it. It was my mother. She was different, her bun undone, her face tired, her eyes without the social varnish. "Can we talk?" she asked in an almost timid tone. We stood face to face for a few seconds, the silence denser than any sermon. She came in, looked around the apartment, the computer still on, the pie on the counter. "Did you really do that?" I nodded. "Why, honey? It was just a dinner. Just one night. No, Mom. It was a lifetime. One door after another." She lowered her eyes. For a moment, she seemed to be looking for something to say, but only found the weight of her own reflection. "I just wanted to protect the family's image." "And who protected me, Mom?" The sound of the words hung between us. She took a deep breath, sat at the table and looked at the pie. "Is it pecan?" I nodded again. "It was always your favorite," she added, almost in a whisper. She cut a piece and ate in silence. Then she raised her teary eyes. "I don't know if I'll be able to ask for forgiveness the right way. But thank you for making me see." That broke me down. For a moment, I saw the woman behind the mother. A woman taught to be ashamed of her own color, her own origin. A woman who believed that erasing was the safest way to exist. "I don't want to humiliate you, Mom. I just want you to stop hiding us. To stop hiding yourself." She nodded, wiping a quick tear, as if afraid of being seen crying. We were silent for a while, listening to the distant sound of the street. Through the window, the sky began to change color, an intense, golden sunset, just like the roses in the vase. My mother got up slowly, ran her hand through my hair and said softly, "You're beautiful, Anna. You always were." I just needed to see you from afar to understand. I didn't need to answer. The gesture was enough. When she left, I was alone again. But this time the loneliness tasted like space. I looked at the phone on the table, where the video continued to be shared. And I thought, shared pain becomes multiplied strength. If they once erased me from photos, now it was impossible to cut me out of history. I picked up the phone and recorded a new short speech, without makeup, without a script. If you've seen yourself in this story, share it. Sometimes, one person's courage is the mirror that awakens thousands. I sent it calmly, feeling my breath slow down. Because at that moment, more than exposing, I was rebuilding. And rebuilding is also a form of revenge. The following hours became a silent whirlwind, the kind of chaos that happens inside, while the world watches from the outside. The video continued to go viral, gaining subtitles in other languages, comments from feminist pages, psychologists' profiles, and even from artists who spoke about colorism and belonging. It was strange to see myself there, turned into a symbol of something that, until a few days ago, had reduced me to silence. But among so many echoes, something was changing. It wasn't fame that was growing, it was awareness. And awareness is heavy, but it illuminates. In the middle of the afternoon, I received an email from the church coordination. Anna, the council has decided to temporarily suspend your family from administrative functions. We would like to count on you to help rebuild the community's image. Your stance was firm but inspiring. If you accept, you can lead our new diversity project. I stared at the text for long minutes. The irony was almost comical. The same ones who had closed the door on me were now asking me to decorate the entrance. I took a deep breath and left the email unanswered. Life had taught me that justice doesn't need a microphone, just strategic silence. Later I sat on the balcony watching the street. People passed by with hurried steps, carrying bags, agendas, promises. I thought about how many of them had also been left outside. Not by a wooden door, but by looks that say, you don't belong. The world is full of these invisible doors. My phone vibrated again, a notification from the family and gratitude group. I didn't expect to see it active so soon. There was a new message, written by my sister. Folks, I think we owe Anna a public apology. What happened was shameful. Her color is ours too. For a second I thought it was a lie. This was the same sister who years ago had called me the dark part of the family. Now she was there making cracks in the wall. Soon other messages came. Anna, we love you, it was a mistake. We didn't know we were hurting you so much. We need to talk for real. I didn't reply. Not out of pride, but because I didn't want reconciliation to be born from a trending topic. I wanted it to come from understanding, not from embarrassment. I went back to the computer and opened the video again. This time not to review but to observe. Watching that sequence of images made me see something new. The video was no longer about me. It was about everyone who had ever had their existence edited. I decided to create a space for these stories. I registered the domain appendiverse.org and wrote the first sentence on the homepage. Here, every story has a place in the photo. In a few hours, dozens of messages started coming in. People sending reports, old photos, requests to participate. A movement was born, spontaneous, genuine. And I, without planning, became a curator of what silence had tried to erase. At night my father called. His name flashing on the screen made my heart stop for a second. I answered, "Hi, Dad." The sound on the other end was lower, almost a whisper. "You destroyed everything on it." "No, Dad. I just pulled the rug out from under the light. People are talking about me on the street. You exposed your family. My family locked me out. Now the world saw what I lived through." Silence. I heard his heavy breathing. "You don't understand how much we fought to maintain respect." "Respect for whom, Dad?" "For others to see. Because inside the house, there was never any left for me." He tried to answer, but his voice failed. Finally, he said something I never imagined hearing. "Your mother cried all night. She said she wants to start over. Maybe I need to too." We hung up without goodbyes. I looked at the reflection of my face darkened by the screen's light. I looked calm, but inside me there was a mixture of peace and melancholy. Getting revenge is easy. Healing is what takes courage. I picked up my phone and recorded a new short speech for social media, my voice low but firm. When they call you exaggerated, remember, their silence was always greater. Share this story if you're also tired of fitting into others' frames. I posted it and let the video go. In a few minutes, the comments started to grow, people telling stories of schools, companies, families, weddings, all with the same plot of exclusion disguised as good manners. I read and felt a strange gratitude. Shared pain was turning into a chorus. I looked out the window and saw the sky turning dark red. The same tone my mother said, "Doesn't suit you." Now it was the color that covered everything, the sky, the city, me. And for the first time I liked seeing myself in the reflection. I picked up my phone and typed the final caption of the night. If they want to erase, let them erase. But the image has already been projected. I sent it and closed my eyes. On the other side of the screen, the world was starting to rewrite itself. The next morning, the sun came through the window with a sweetness that felt new. It was no longer the kind of light that invaded. It was the kind that is invited in. The house was silent but not empty. Every corner had something alive. The yellow flowers already open in the vase, the smell of fresh coffee, the distant sound of a notification arriving on my phone. For the first time in a long time, that sound didn't make me anxious. It was a sign of movement. I picked up my phone and saw what had happened overnight. The Pendoverse.org page had exploded. Hundreds of new stories had been sent. Old photos, texts, voice recordings. Black women of all ages from all places, telling how they too had been left outside. In school photos, at family reunions, in work promotions, in conversations where the word represent was used to exclude. Each account began the same way. Me too. I stood there reading, crying, and smiling at the same time. One of them wrote, "You opened the door that fear had closed for us. Now no one goes back outside." I closed my eyes and let that sentence echo. It was more than I could have imagined when it all started with a door closing in my face. The phone rang. It was my sister. "Hi Anna. Mom asked me to invite you to Sunday dinner. Thanksgiving again?" I asked with a half smile. "No." She said, "It's not about the holiday. It's about a new beginning." I took a few seconds to answer. Her voice sounded sincere but carried the weight of regret. "I'll think about it, okay?" I replied. "I'm still learning to walk through the right doors." She laughed, an embarrassed laugh. "We'll leave the door open this time." After I hung up, I stared into space for a few seconds. The idea of a reunion didn't scare me, but it made me curious. I was no longer the same woman who had been left outside. And if they wanted me back, they would have to welcome me whole, unedited. I sat at the table with my laptop and started writing a text for the platform's new project. What it means to be inside. I wrote, "It's not the space that defines us. It's the gaze. Being inside isn't sitting at the table. It's being seen with truth. And sometimes the biggest entrance is when we decide not to knock anymore." The words flowed with a naturalness that surprised me. It was as if, after years, the voice I lacked had finally learned to use my own body as a microphone. Later, I received an unexpected message. A woman named Helena wanted a meeting about the project. She was a documentary producer about representation and said she wanted to record an interview with me. "You don't have to be perfect, Anna," she wrote. "You just have to be real. Because what you did is already history." I read that and felt a shiver. The idea of seeing my story told on screen scared and thrilled me. Not for the exposure, but for the dimension. What was born from a humiliation was now becoming a tool for transformation. In the late afternoon, I went for a walk. The same path to the bakery, the same corners, but everything seemed to have a different tone. People looked at me differently. Some with admiration, others with discomfort. I didn't avoid the gazes anymore. I let them see me. In the bakery window, a poster caught my attention. Church fundraising campaign. Diversity is love. The logo was the same, but now there were faces of various colors. and among them, discreetly, one that looked like me. Smiled. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a statement. The world was adjusting. When I got home, the sky was already a mosaic of warm colors. In the window's reflection, I saw my face mixed with the sunset, the same color they once said didn't suit me. I touched the glass and let a thought escape aloud. It does suit me. Suits me, the world, the truth. I picked up my phone and recorded another short video, unplanned. For those who have been excluded from the photo, one day you will see yourself reflected in everything. On the screen, in the mirror, in others' eyes. And you will understand that the beauty they denied you was just fear of the light you brought. Posted it. Within minutes, the first comments came in. People saying amen. People crying, people thanking. And among them, a message from my mother. I watched you. I'm proud of you. Can I call you tomorrow? Smiled. Not because the wound had closed, but because, for the first time, the request for contact came without guilt. It came with humanity. I took a deep breath. The night was falling slowly, and the house was filled with the light of screens, of echoes, of the voices I had helped to free. And there, in that instant, I realized. My revenge was never about hurting. It was about illuminating. Because nothing exposes darkness more than the courage to turn on your own light. Sunday arrived like a whisper, unhurried, noiseless. Through the window, the sky was clear, and the air had that scent of a new beginning that you only recognize after surviving the storm. I wore a yellow dress, the same shade as the flowers still adorning the vase. It wasn't a gesture of vanity, but of affirmation. For years, I learned to dress not to bother. Today I dress to exist. On the way to my parents' house, my heart beat at a calm, almost curious pace. The city followed its rhythm. Families leaving mass, children running in the square, the wind playing with advertising papers on the ground. Every sound seemed to say, "You made it this far, and the world continues." When I parked in front of the house, I hesitated for a moment. The same door, the same portal that had once closed in front of me. But now there was something different. The curtain was open, and the smell of food escaped through the window. Before I could knock, the door opened. My mother was there, her face serene, her eyes moist. "This time we waited for you on the inside," she said with a half smile. Entered. The house was the same, but the atmosphere was different. There was silence, yes, but not that of embarrassment, that of someone learning to listen. My father was at the table, older than I remembered. When he saw me, he stood up and adjusted his jacket, as if still trying to maintain an image. Then he took a deep breath and extended his hand. "You were right," he said simply. Image was everything. And I never saw what really mattered. I took his hand, not as someone accepting an apology, but as someone closing a cycle. My sister appeared with a plate in her hand, the pecan pie. The same one. Only this time with a piece already separated from me, the fork next to it, the plate in the center of the table. We laughed. It was a shy, awkward, but sincere laugh. The kind of sound that comes when the pain begins to heal. During dinner, no one mentioned the video, nor the scandal, nor the comments. We talked about simple things, flowers, the neighborhood, plans. And, for the first time, I felt that this conversation wasn't a performance. It was people trying to rebuild what pride had broken. At the end, my mother raised an impromptu toast. To the doors that opened. May we never again lock anyone out, not even ourselves. The glasses touched with a gentle sound. I returned home at dusk. The sky was copper-colored, and the wind brought the smell of the pie I was taking in a container, along with a slice of peace. When I arrived, I sat on the sofa, turned on the computer, and opened the Appendiwurst.org website. The messages kept coming. Hundreds of women, men, and even teenagers sending stories. There was a living force there, a network of voices meeting where there was once silence. I scrolled to the end of the page and added a new section. Stories that opened up. There I put a simple text, my last record. One day they told me my color ruined photos. Today my story illuminates others. I didn't have to scream nor hurt. I just had to exist whole. If you also learn to turn pain into light, this page is your home. Published it. The sound of a notification made me look at the corner of the screen. Someone had left a comment on my most recent video. It was short but precise. "Thank you for opening the door first." Smiled. I closed the laptop, looked at the window, and saw my reflection mixing with the twilight. The line between inside and outside, light and shadow, light and dark. Everything seemed dissolved. I was no longer absence. I was presence. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself and to whoever came after. Family is who sees you with light, not who erases you to shine. The screen slowly went dark, like the curtain of a film that ends with the truth exposed, not with a scream. And if you've made it this far, and at some point you've felt invisible, remember. The story changes when we decide to show up. Subscribe, share, tell, inspire, because every voice that rises is a door open for another to enter. And so, between pain and revelation, the girl excluded from the photo became the woman behind the light.